My student that didn't go to college because she stayed with her family. I'm like, I get that. I get that now. This Hey, make sure you subscribe for more hacks in the future. Tonight, we are focusing on working with our families that are Spanish speaking with our students. And I think everybody here knows me, but I'm Stephanie Kesson. I am the founder of the online Itinerant, and the online Itinerant was created to support professionals and family members of kids who are deaf and hard of hearing. Let me just start out by saying that the online itinerant is committed to supporting Spanish-speaking families on both sides of the border. And I say that importantly because it hasn't always been that way. And the online itinerant, as you know, is growing because of expanding my own understanding of meeting the needs of my students. My heart has opened even more so for this particular population of students and their families. Now, that is not meant to exclude any other immigrant families and immigrant family needs. This is just the most prevalent one that I work with. So it's kind of the first one on my list. Let me just share a little bit of my story. I live in Wisconsin. I live in what would be considered rural Wisconsin. It's actually central Wisconsin, but because the majority of the population in Wisconsin is like in Madison and Milwaukee, the center of Wisconsin and north of that is very rural. And there is a huge Spanish population here. A lot of migrant workers and a lot of schools that are predominantly Spanish speaking. And that is really where I started to kind of interact with these families and these students. And I'm just going to share candidly with you. I felt very frustrated with my families of these students initially. I was getting students, maybe like many of you have or have had, like that were moving in seventh grade and didn't have any language. And now they were in a mainstream setting that was a middle school setting, which meant it was very academic and they were changing teachers, every teacher, and they didn't have any language at all. I mean, not even like they had Spanish language. They didn't, and they needed to learn English. They had zero language. And here we were coming in. Or I had very young children that didn't have hearing aids. Or I would be trying to get the families to advocate and ask for more services or more support. And they weren't. And I had to be very careful with how I tried to do that because I didn't want to get in trouble. And you have to be very careful with just all of the politics of all of it. It's just, it's a challenge. So where I live, the School for the Deaf is 3 hours away, but there is also a deaf program that's about 30 minutes away. These families would move in to where I was working, and I would really encourage them to put their child and send them to one of these programs. And the families were adamant, absolutely not. They would not do this. They would not put their child on the bus. I also had students that I felt could do more. I had one student who's so smart, could go anywhere to college, anywhere, could get a scholarship. I just knew that any place she wanted to go, she could go. And when she graduated, she worked as a waitress with her family inside the Mexican restaurant that was in the town. And I just felt like I needed to get a better understanding of these families and where they were coming from and what their needs were and what it was like for them in Mexico and what that experience was moving to central Wisconsin where I am. So I started really talking with my families. And last year, May of 2025, a small group of very adventurous teachers piloted a program with me where we did a conference on a Royal Caribbean cruise ship, which sounds very luxurious. And yes, it was. It was amazing. But we went to Cozumel and we connected with deaf program there in Cozumel. And to say that this trip was eye-opening doesn't articulate enough what it was for all of us, because I think everybody who was going expected to see what we saw. But of course, once you're there and you're actually seeing it in real life, then it's really different. And what I learned from interviewing people and talking with people and getting a sense of what deaf education is in Mexico is it's very different. It's very different from how it is here. My understanding is that when you're in a much more big city in Mexico, you've got, as it is here in the US, you've got more services, you've got more options, you've got more support. But if you're not in those bigger cities, it's very, very different. There's kind of two tracks. Well, I should say three tracks. You can either be in the mainstream with essentially no support and no services. You can go to a special school, which is a school for children with special needs, which can be very intensive special needs, deaf with additional disabilities, or you can stay home. Those are kind of the three tracks. Now, when we went to Cozumel, we got to visit the special school. We got to, and it was amazing. It was wonderful. And the families brought the children. We had a service project. We met the families, we met the children, we did an activity with them. Many of those kids came in so proud to show their hearing aids, their hearing devices that they wore so proudly and were so happy to have. None of them worked. And I don't mean a few of them were, I mean, like, not one device worked or at least worked well. There was a child with a cochlear implant who had sound detection, but that was it. The hearing aids either had zero batteries in them or had batteries that had never been changed. They were very corroded. There's no audiologist there. They have to travel a very long ways, even to have an audiology. The classroom, no books. No books. I mean, it's just not something that they have in the school, books. It's not something that they had. There is one computer for the whole school, and that was in the principal's office. There's one printer for the school, same thing, locked up so that nothing gets stolen. And there were very little materials. But the teachers and the staff and the families, the love and the heart and the hard work that they put in to working with these students was unbelievable. And you could just tell the love and everything that they had for these kids, and the kids, the love that they had for these teachers. Now, without this school, their other option was, again, in the mainstream with zero support, or to be at home. And that was just really very, very eye-opening for, I think, all of us, just to sit and work with these students and experience this. The other thing that was really powerful, I think, was just to kind of really recognize some of the cultural differences. The families stick together in Mexico. I mean, family is very, very important, which means that those families take care of their children. They have this, they feel like they will never let their child suffer. So they are there, which is kind of different. I mean, not that us as Americans let our children suffer, but us as Americans, we're like, let's be independent, let's be strong, let's do all of this stuff. Whereas the cultural value is to really stay with your family and help your family there. So as I was learning this and experiencing this, all of a sudden I looked back at my experience with the families that I'd been working with in Wisconsin, and my heart broke. All of a sudden, everything changed like this, because my student that didn't go to college because she stayed with her family, I'm like, I get that. I get that now. The students that were coming to school every day and getting any type of services, and the families that were so happy with those services, but also to consider the changes and the difference for when these families moved from there to America and they don't have the language. The system is a completely different system. The expectations in school, it's a totally different. And the families don't know. The families don't understand what the expectations are in school because they've never been in American school. All they know is what they've had over in their country in Mexico. And all of a sudden, I really had a different understanding and a real passion for being able to support these families better and not be frustrated, critical, and upset, because I just had a whole new understanding of the families. These are the 5 things that our families of our Spanish speaking students need. This is all very new for these families who are not from America. First of all, understanding how to navigate the school system and how to advocate for their child, because our school system is so different And advocating for their child is also very different because to many of these families, just being here in the United States in the first place at all is a totally better scenario than if they weren't here. And so to advocate for something, to push for something, or to get angry about something that's not happening is very foreign because it feels like what they are receiving here is so much better. And plus, there's this, I'm going to use the language like the level of respect to an educator or to a principal or something like that is just very, very, very big, very large. So to question that or to push against that feels very foreign to them. They also need early and appropriate early intervention services. And they need it in their language, of course, so that they can understand, so that they've got access to this. We need to find them because many of these children have never had any of these services. And as we know, early intervention is huge and it is so impactful for these children, but also for these families to have that family community, have that person to walk alongside of them and help navigate all of this. Language access for school meetings. There's no interpreters for our families often, or sometimes the interpretation for the meetings is not necessarily good. So a lot of times the Spanish interpreters might be somebody who speaks English and Spanish, but they don't have that training on how to interpret everything or how to not answer for families or even some of the language, talking about hearing aids or hearing loss, different stuff like that. And that's a real challenge. Also, the reports, they're not translated into English. A lot of families in Mexico are illiterate because maybe they haven't had the education to be able to have a strong reading foundation and then to hand them a report with all the lingo and all the vocabulary that's in our report. So this can also be very, very challenging. Of course, accessible information and resources. Again, that goes back to our translations. And then the number one thing on this slide is that support. So many of our families do not have that support to be able to explain what is school like here? What is the opportunity for their child? What does that look like? How is it different? So with this, the online itinerant is really striving to be able to help support families. So this is a big task and to be perfectly transparent, it's just one little step at a time. And I want to show you a few of the resources that the online itinerant has that we've started with. But not only that, I want to share some other resources with you and some things that I am doing that I think that you might be interested in. And then I'm going to talk about what's next. Being able to have these conversations with the families that you have, being able to connect with them. If you're starting to feel frustrated or you're feeling like, why isn't the family doing this? Why aren't they advocating? Why aren't they allowing sign language? Why aren't they whatever? Then just really, I want to encourage you to walk alongside of them, step in their shoes for a little bit, and just have a heart for all of the changes. And I'm not even talking about the political mess that's happening right now. This isn't about politics. This is about kids, how that impacts our families and how it impacts our children that we work with. Just have a soft heart and an understanding and a willingness to walk alongside those families. So if you are familiar with the website, it is www.theonlineitinerant.com. On the website, this is the homepage. If you are a member of the Academy, then you can log in and you can tell what you can tell that you're logged in if you have your little icon here, and you can get to all of the resources inside this section called my library. However, with that being said, there's a section right here that says Spanish resources. And if you are feeling like, I didn't know that was there, it's because it's brand new. It was just added to this menu, but I want it to be very easy for you to access are these Spanish resources. So you can click on this section and this will walk you through the different Spanish resources that is inside of the online itinerant. And you can click right on the picture. And if you are logged in, it should take you to that resource. So first of all, we've got the Friend Academy. And we have the entire brochure that has been translated into Spanish. So just to make sure you're familiar with the Friend Academy, the Friend Academy is our parent program. It is a membership, just like the Professional Academy membership is, but it is geared towards families. It's typically $199 per year for families, and it includes family training, power hours where families can come together and chat, and also the toolbox, so activities, which is really nice because if you're working with the child, then you can send that activity home and they can see it or they can reinforce it out. But it's free. If you have a membership in the Professional Academy, then your families can get it for 100% off. So this brochure explains what the Friend Academy is. Inside a toolbox, there's a number of handouts that you can share with your family. So we've got some language building activities for really young kids or pre-emergent language level. So these would be kids with special needs or just young children, our birth to 3 population, or our kids that just have 0 language. These are some great activities. 6 ways to create an inclusive home so that family members know how to just really include their child. Understanding background noise, what that means, and then the impact of hearing loss. All of these you also have in English. If you're a member of the Professional Academy, all of these are also in English. So they have been translated. By the way, not translated through AI. I did have somebody actually translate this for me. So I do know that it is an accurate translation because anytime we use AI, we have to be very wary of that. And then there are some actual trainings for parents. So these particular trainings, and this is what's growing, but these particular trainings are basically helping the families understand kind of the impact of hearing loss, but also just be able to better support their family, support their child through engaging, through building language. These trainings also help families understand if their child has access to language. And if not, then it talks about being able to provide visual support to be able to provide that access. And then there's also a panel that we had in October. These are some deaf adults talking about their experiences, and this also has been translated into Spanish. So these are our starting points with our Spanish resources for our families. And these are embedded inside of the Friend Academy and inside of the Professional Academy. So if you're a member already, you have all of these. But I know that not everybody is a member. And of course, the online itinerant is just starting with our resources. This is a great organization for you to be aware of. It's called Hands United. Hands United is a nonprofit organization who specializes in working with immigrant families of deaf children. It is not exclusive to Spanish. It has I think there's probably 20 or 30 different languages. There are a number of different programs in here, including family and community support, immigration support, driver's education, and professional services. And many of these programs, many of these trainings are free or very inexpensive. The online itinerant does not yet have power hours for our Spanish speaking families specifically yet. I'm hoping to add that, but I don't have that yet. But that is embedded into what this program offers, what the Hands United offers, but also just lessons on navigating US systems, Spanish sign language classes. So it's American Sign Language, but it's taught in Spanish, but they also have it in other languages as well. And all kinds of information on education and school advocacy. So if you are feeling like you really want to help your families advocate for IEPs, but you're feeling like, I'm in a sticky place because I'm employed by this school and I have to be cautious with what I say, then here is a resource for you that you can bring families to that is going to be in their language with their community, right? Their Spanish speaking community, that is going to be able to walk them through some of these big questions and some of these tricky situations. So this is definitely a resource that you want to be familiar with. This is the YouTube channel for also for Hands United. So you can see that there are lots of trainings in here, and this is nice because you can see the Spanish title here, but then it's also in English here, which is nice. You know, a lot of information on accessibility, a lot of information just on school systems. So just some great resources here through Hands United. I'm putting this little disclaimer out here for you. I am not the guru or the expert in this. I'm telling you how I am working on hacking it, and I'm getting better, but I'm learning too. So I'm just sharing with you some things that I have discovered and what I have learned. There are now language translation AirPods. They just look like regular AirPods. Okay. And I actually got these on sale for $25 on Black Friday, but I think you could get them pretty easily for $50. Um, these AirPods, you put them in your ears and they listen to whatever language is coming in and they translate it to whatever language you ask it to. There's over 100 languages that you can translate it to. I recently went out with my friend from Mexico and I said, let's have lunch. You just talk in Spanish. I'm just going to talk in English. We're going to see how good these things are. And she was blown away with how accurate this was. We even played around with it. I said, all right, I'm going to give you some idioms. You tell me, how does it do with translating these idioms? So I said, oh my gosh, I'm stuffed to the gills after eating this meal. I'm stuffed to the gills. That's what I said in English. I translated it to her. The actual translation was, I am so full after eating this large meal. So it was able to understand the idioms and be able to translate it properly. So this is very nice. If you're trying to have like a one-on-one conversation and you want to be able to communicate with each other, you each need a pair of these. You each need a pair because it comes in whatever language you're having it interpreted into, but you are still speaking out your language. So if they don't understand your language, then you each need a pair. So this would be challenging to have at a meeting unless everybody would need their own pair of these. Now, of course, this is for communicating with parents. If you're going, I wouldn't put them in the ears of a student. But this would be, you know, it is an option. Here's some things that I'm doing with my students, but there is a picture dictionary that I really love. And this is kind of for our younger kids or for our kids who are just learning sign language. It's a picture dictionary and it has a picture of whatever the item is or the verb and it goes in categories, which I also really love. So it's people, you know, all the people in life, activities, verbs, food, you know, nouns. So it's kind of in sections and it has a picture of whatever it is that we're communicating. And then it has the American Sign Language sign. But in the back of the book, there is an index, and I think there are maybe 25 or 30 different languages that are there. So you can go to the index and they can find the word and then they can go. But what's neat about this is that you can make these flashcards. And I have had kids, I'm not kidding you, that read this book. They just read it like it's their reading book. And then if they're trying to communicate something and they don't know what it is, they'll go and grab the book, they'll flip to the picture and they'll find the picture, they'll show it, and then they'll sign it. So this is a really cute and good resource as well. Have you guys seen these little printers yet? This is the side. Okay, this is my hand, right? It fits in the palm of my hand. And what happens is you take a picture, you get a picture of anything, and then you send the picture to the um, to the printer. Okay, so now I'm going to go to this app and I have the picture of us and I can actually, I'm going to print it and it's printing, okay? That fast. Now, of course it's tiny, okay? But what this is it's a sticker. I take it off like this, and now I can stick it to whatever I want to stick it on. So, how is this useful? Get a sign. So, kids that are learning sign names for their family members, you can get a picture with that family member, get a picture of the sign, and print it and stick it to the flashcard that you're sending home. Snacks. You want to sign a show crackers? You can get a picture of the child signing crackers. You can stick it to the snack. You can put a picture and it's great. I love it for flashcards, but also like you could put them all over the house, but you can also put QR codes on here. So, for example, if you've got an app or anything like that, you can get a picture, you can stick the QR code on, and then you've got it. I've actually found 100 different uses for this, and it's very, very, very handy, especially for our kids who are learning sign and you need those visual supports. But you can also like add the written word on the app, like you get the picture up there and you can add the text for it or anything like that. So those are some of the ways that I am trying to really work with my kiddos and my families. What's happening next is that I'm going back to Cozumel in 9 days. I'm visiting the school that and the staff that we met when we were there in May. And I'm bringing some things. I'm bringing some materials for them that's going to help them meet the needs of their students. I'm bringing hearing aid batteries. I am going to bring them one of these little printers. I'm bringing them dry erase boards. Gabriella is helping provide some a donation so that they could get a sign dictionary for Mexican Sign Language. By the way, Mexican Sign Language is different than American Sign Language. And when I say different, it's not different, it's different. It is like different. It is big different than American Sign Language. Which I'm also bringing them these printed Mexican Sign Language. They're just little tiny little dictionaries that just have some label words, but it's kind of a similar thing. Now, this is actually a product from Hands United that so these have like there's pictures and then there's a QR code. So then the video pops up and you've got the Mexican Sign Language. How cool is that, right? And then there is an app. There's actually an app that's way more. And this app is free, and it's Mexican Sign Language. So families can get this app. It's very common to have cell phones in Mexico. So we're bringing a bunch of those as well. And online itinerant's goal is to be able to build the capacity of the staff that's working with these students so that they know how to better support them and how to better work with. They were at the special school where the deaf kids are. The staff had no idea how to check batteries. No idea how to check if the hearing aids were working. We literally were showing them how to open the battery door. They had no idea. They didn't know how to open the door. They didn't know how to check for batteries. They certainly didn't know how to change batteries, none of that. So it's a really important to us that we are able to provide them with the tools so that they can, even when we're gone, they can continue to support their students and provide their students with the language and the education and meet their needs, accessibility needs that they can in that environment. Now, this is what's really exciting. My husband and I we're going to be visiting the school. We're going on a cruise ship. We're going on a Carnival cruise ship to get there. This is the exact same Carnival cruise ship and cruise that the online itinerant is hosting in 2027 when we host our conference on the cruise ship. So we will be going back. We're trying to plan a service project there. It's all pending. It's all in the planning process. But ahead of that, we're working on organizing a hearing clinic that can provide some hearing testing, that can provide some donated technology, some hearing aids, also some sign language classes, some support for our families and for our kiddos that are over there so that the people that work with them and love them have a better understanding of how to support them better. because in Mexico, it's very important that they have some great educational services. So I'm really excited about what the online itinerant is working towards, and I've got a great community of people, including Gabriella and some other people who have just really stepped up to help me. In full transparency, I don't speak Spanish, so it's really interesting for me to try to navigate this. It really takes a village, but I have a real heart for these families, and I have even more of a heart for them after being there. And my families that I work with here, I have a whole new understanding of where they're at and how I can meet them and walk alongside of them along. You're all invited to come and join. Anyway, that's what I want to share with you are basically what are the needs and how can we get creative with hacking them? Because if you're like me, we're like, just trying to get anything and really trying to support our families who maybe don't want to put their child on the bus to go 30 minutes to a program, much less 3 hours to a program. And how can we support them in seventh grade when they don't have any language? And I'm an itinerant teacher. I can't stay with them all day long. And the teachers that do stay with them all day long don't know sign language. And the school is saying, but they don't need an interpreter because they don't sign, right? And you're like, no, but we've got to figure something else out here. You guys, thank you so much for joining tonight. I've loved seeing you. We're back. We're back on Tuesday nights. Now, next week, I'm going to be talking about some hacks for working with kids who are deaf with autism. I'll see you this week, Thursday, if you can. Otherwise, next week, Tuesday. Have a great night, everybody.
Visit our website to learn more about becoming a Professional Academy member. And catch us next week with a new hack for you.